We're here today to thank the Moreland Commission for their eloquent report and their roadmap for draining the swamp of corruption in Albany, and also to kick off a renewed campaign to enact comprehensive campaign finance reform in Albany in 2014. The Moreland Commission's report identified legal bribery allowed by our current weak campaign finance system as one of the most pervasive problems in Albany. The report outlined a comprehensive roadmap for reforming Albany, including a system of small donor matching funds similar to New York City's for all statewide and legislative races, and strong enforcement and disclosure and closing of major loopholes. The Commission's report, issued by a bi-partisan group led by law enforcement officials, provides a historic opportunity for reform. 4 years ago, the campaign finance reform was a major issue during the 2013 legislative session in Albany. The New York State Assembly passed a bill that would have implemented a public financing program, and Governor Cuomo, Senator Stewart Cousins, and Senator Klein all introduced legislation, but no final deal was struck. This is the moment where things can change. 4 years ago, Governor Cuomo ran for office promising to return integrity to our government. As we enter the 2014 legislative session, the time is almost up. We know the governor wants to get public financing of elections done and has restated his support for it, but now it's time to actually do it. We have the momentum from the Commission's bipartisan report, and we've seen what can happen when the governor takes a strong leadership role. Now is the time for him to bring everyone together to finally clean up Albany and send shockwaves of democracy across the nation. Our next speaker is Lawrence Norton, Deputy Director of the Brennan Center for Justice and Democracy Program. Larry?
Thanks, Karen. I want to talk first this afternoon about the crisis that is facing both our state and our country. In too many ways, government no longer belongs to the people. As the Moreland report released on Monday put it, our pay-to-play culture is greased by a campaign finance system in which large donors set the legislative agenda. It did this with illustrations that should shock us, but sadly don't. Lobbyists telling clients that part of the expense of getting a bill passed in the legislature is to make big campaign contributions. Special interests urging members to write $10,000 checks if they want to control the legislative agenda and what bills get voted on and what bills don't. Most troubling is not that this kind of thing happens in Albany, but that no one is shocked. That politicians and the media and many members of the public say that nothing can be done. And as long as we believe that nothing can be done, nothing will be done. And that comes to the second thing that I want to talk about this afternoon, and what's so important about the historic Moreland report that was just released. A commission that was made almost entirely of the country's leading prosecutors and former prosecutors have taken a magnifying glass to Albany, and they have said, we just can't prosecute our way out of a system that is so corrupt. But that doesn't mean that things are hopeless. We can start rewriting the rules of the game and give everyday citizens far more voice if they'll take it. We can lower sky-high contribution limits that are 11 times higher than what's allowed to be given for a candidate for President of the United States. We can close loopholes that make a mockery even of those limits. We can create an independent enforcement unit that will make sure that our new laws are actually enforced. And most importantly, we can start giving a voice to average citizens by providing public matching funds for small contributions from real people. This isn't a magic bullet, but it's an important reminder that we don't have to accept the crisis, that we can, as the authors of the report say, empower regular citizens, reduce the power of massive checks and special interests, and increase the accountability of officials to the people. The Moreland Commission has given us a gift. There are plenty of special interests in Albany, plenty of incumbent politicians who will do everything they can to prevent us from accepting it. Our job is to insist that the governor and the legislature do everything they can in their power to follow the recommendations of this report and fundamentally change campaign finance laws in this state, including adopting a system of small donor public financing. That would bring dramatic change to the state, and it would frankly show the rest of the country that we don't have to accept what has for too long been unacceptable. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Cynthia DiPartolo, the chair of the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce. Cynthia?
Thank you. We applaud the Moreland Commission for recommending a statewide public financing system as the single best solution to Albany's pay-to-play culture of corruption. As the chairperson of the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce, representing more than 22,000 businesses and civic leaders, and as the executive board member of Albany, the Business and Labor Coalition of New York, I stand here before you as the voice of small and medium-sized business across New York. Too often their needs are overlooked in the shadow of jumbo contributions that special political access. And business leaders like myself are deeply concerned about the effect of the current financial funding practices because we believe the system as it exists does not serve the public's interests or the interests of the business community. The current system hinders economic growth. Tax loopholes, pay-to-play antics, special interest project waste taxpayer dollars, and tilt the scale in favor of very few. In the current system, constituents' voices, the people, are generally drowned out by corporations and big donors. The people have effectively been marginalized. We support campaign finance reform and a statewide public financing system in solidarity as business leaders because we know the current system hinders our economic growth. Clearly, it's not an effective strategy which will grow New York's economy. Long-term growth will come from innovation, an open marketplace that is free of corruption and applies the same rules to everyone. Moreover, as business leaders, we recognize that the value of competition in both business and politics, which translates into competition being a healthy force that encourages enterprise, stimulates greater availability of goods and services, economic efficiency, and ultimately innovation in our marketplace. The interactions and synergies generated by competition are an essential element of a properly functioning marketplace. In politics, elections serve as the principal means by which citizens express their political preferences and hold elected officials responsible for their actions. Current campaign fundraising practices, however, do not serve the public's best interests, nor do they serve the interests of our business community. Therefore, we demand and require a system that makes elections more transparent, fair, and competitive. When Albany elevates the businesses with the best political connections above those with the best business practices, it's holding back our economy and hurting average New Yorkers. Tax and regulatory policy needs to be rational. It needs to be fair. It needs to be consistent. Therefore, there shouldn't be loopholes for the biggest donors or industry-specific tax breaks that don't make sound fiscal sense. That's why business leaders are getting behind public financing in New York, and we need to reduce contribution limits, close those loopholes, and provide professional enforcement of campaign finance laws. The most important change we can make is instituting a small donor matching system for contributions. It will bring average voters and businesses the same political power that's reserved for the elite few. Small and medium-sized businesses are New York's dramatic job-creating engine. They need legislatures willing to act on their concerns. Transparent, fair, competitive elections will make our legislatures accountable to their constituents and encourage our elected officials to treat individuals and businesses equally, regardless of how close they are to a politician's ear or how close they are to a politician's wallet. Public financing of campaigns has a proven track record of success. And since it was instituted in New York over 2 decades ago, we've seen unprecedented run of competitive elections, and we have witnessed economic success. That's no coincidence. Let's be clear. Transparent and fair governance is essential to business concerns and to business success. On behalf of the more than 22,000 business and civic leaders making up the core of the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce, we stand in line wholeheartedly with the Moreland Commission. The Commission did the right thing and joined New York's voters and business leaders in supporting the statewide public financing. Now, it's Governor Cuomo's and legislators' turn. They need to pass comprehensive campaign financing reform now, including a public financing system. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Woo! Our next speaker is Whitney North Seymour, former Republican New York State Senator and former U.S. Attorney. Mike?
48 years ago, I was elected to the New York State Senate. It was a wonderful reward for a lot of hard work, meeting people on 2nd Avenue and doing all the grassroots campaigning that used to be the norm in running for the state legislature. My highest campaign contribution, as I recall, was $100. My total budget, as I recall, was $3,000. And out of that came the most happy relationship probably of my lifetime, getting to know my colleagues in the state Senate, who are people you are proud to know, who are working hard for the folks they represented, and many of whom became personal friends. I still keep up with several of my friends from the state Senate 50 years later. So the Senate used to be a good place, and it can be a good place again, as well as the Assembly, if we take the money out of politics. It's the high cost of elections that is providing the opportunity for corruption in government, because of the money that it takes to get reelected or to get elected in the first place. And the sure remedy is public financing, with people making small contributions to get the ball rolling, and then the rest of us picking up our fair share of getting a corruption-proof legislature in New York State. We're not the first one to be doing this. Public financing exists in Arizona, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, as I recall. It's been tried and it's worked very well, and it's going to work very well here. The person who can make the difference is the governor. The governor's leadership and his work and negotiating legislation with the leaders of the state legislature is going to make this possible. And it's up to us to keep the pressure on the governor to say, do it now.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Dick Dady, Executive Director of Citizens Union.
Thank you, Karen. You know, when you think about it, the Moreland Commission's report was not all that surprising. It found corruption in Albany. But what was shocking was the detailed accounting of many of the instances that they detailed of how corruption takes place in Albany. The cost of corruption is very high on our democracy here in New York. The dollars that are spent or lost as a result of the corrupting influence of special interests is way too high a price for New Yorkers to pay. It is why we need comprehensive campaign finance reform, including public funding of our campaigns, to cure this culture of corruption. And that's why Citizens Union is proud to stand here with our colleagues in the Fair Elections campaign to call upon the governor and the New York State legislature to come together finally and act upon these recommendations and to enact comprehensive campaign finance reform, specifically public funding of our campaigns.
And our next speaker is David Galarza, the Church Council President from Trinity Lutheran Church, Sunset Park, Brooklyn.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of the Dr. Reverend Sam Cruz of Trinity Lutheran Church, who's unfortunately not here. Wanted very much to be here, but got stuck in traffic or in the subways. But I'm here on his behalf, and I would like to read a statement on his behalf. As senior pastor at Trinity Lutheran Church in the wonderfully diverse community of Sunset Park, Brooklyn, thank you all for inviting me to say a few words on this important topic. Let me begin by saying that while I understand and respect the separation of church and state, I often feel like we need to bring some religion to one of the world's oldest professions. The gospel in the book of Matthew tells us how Jesus enters the temple and drives out all who were buying and selling there. Overturning their tables and benches, he admonishes them, "My house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." Now, we all know that the state capitol is hardly as holy as the temple, right? But as a citizen of this country and resident of the state, I must ask, shouldn't we strive to protect and promote the sacred virtues of our democracy? That's why we need to support comprehensive campaign finance reform in the form of fair elections legislation. It not only empowers underserved communities like mine, but it strengthens the voice of democracy. It also becomes imperative to correcting inequalities that exist between the well-connected, the affluent, and the poor. Comprehensive campaign finance reform provides us with the tools necessary to address many of the challenges that my diverse community faces. We cannot talk about social justice today without addressing the corrupting influence of money within the political process. Until we pass fair elections, we cannot really begin to remove the corrosive, corrupting grip of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Susan Lerner, Executive Director of Common Cause New York.
Thank you. So I think one thing that's very clear is that the Moreland Commission report has really pulled together so many diverse strands of information and ideas into one really clearly focused set of recommendations that we hope the legislature will hear loud and clear. The momentum has been building. The dissent has claimed that our analysis of independent expenditures is an excuse for not passing fair elections. But they didn't get to the end of our analysis because they got it backwards. What we found in looking at independent expenditures in New York City's most recent election is that it was the matching fund system which actually helped the candidates stand up to the independent spending and get their message out. So what we see in New York City and what we believe the Moreland Commission has pointed out is that there really is no impediment, no ideological reason, and we believe no practical reason why the matching fund system that we propose as part of fair elections wouldn't work as well at the state level as it does on the city level. The time is now. The Moreland Commission has shown that we should not be putting up with this corruption. We're looking forward to their future reports as they continue investigating in ways that those of us in the good government community have not been able to get to the bottom of. And we know that there is the momentum now for actually addressing the corruption that has been pervasive in Albany for way too long. Thank you, Moreland Commission. We hear your suggestions. We're ready to take up the charge.
Thank you, Susan. Today, the Fair Elections campaign, supported by over 100 organizations, state and national, is launching a reinvigorated grassroots effort to get this done. We're calling on voters across the state to make known their demand for reform with our Penny a Day campaign. A Penny a Day Keeps the Corruption Away is our new campaign to highlight the fact that cleaning up Albany and cleaning up the corruption will only cost New Yorkers about $3 each, about a penny a day. And that's why we're launching a Penny a Day Keeps Corruption Away. And we're going to be collecting pennies all across New York. We're launching with this event here today, but also in New York, other parts of New York City, Long Island, Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, the Hudson Valley, and an online campaign with a petition and virtual penny donations so that New Yorkers all across the state can let the governor and the legislature know that we've had enough. The time is now. The time has come to end pay-to-play legal bribery and the waste of billions of taxpayer dollars. We will be engaging voters all across the state to make that known and to ask for the legislature and the governor to enact comprehensive campaign finance reforms, including a small donor matching system in 2014, well before they face the voters in November of 2014. So we're starting now. All the speakers will start by putting their pennies in, a penny a day, and we're going to go out collecting New Yorkers' pennies to call upon the legislature and the governor to do it now. Thank you.
Penny a day keeps
Corruption away. Fair elections now. A penny a day keeps corruption away. Fair elections now. A penny a day keeps corruption away. Fair elections now. A penny a day keeps corruption away. Fair elections now. A penny a day keeps corruption away. Fair elections now. A penny a day